passionate one. Oh, yeah! It's like lightning.
So amidst the several God discussions that have been and will be, since that's just a popular topic for people, actually I received an email from someone else who wants some more commentary from me on the topic of God. I wanted to give a sort of an interlude, and I wanted to talk to you about your money and how you might preserve it over the months and years ahead. It should be interesting. For most of you, I know most of my subscribers are of the older generation, so this is particularly arrogant of me to think that I could tell you anything about your own money. But give me a few minutes and I'll see if I can hook you. When you start with some preliminary stuff, some things you probably already know. Most of you already know. When you deposit your money into the bank does not hold on to it. The bank actually loans it out. Say that you deposit $100,000, the bank might loan out $50,000 to another person. That other person would take that money and buy something for $50,000. Now suddenly your money, half of your money, is no longer part of the banking system. It's outside of the banking system. It's given to someone who had a $50,000 something or other to sell, like a car or whatever it happens to be. Say that you have a medical emergency or some other kind of emergency where you need $70,000. You return to the bank to withdraw $70,000. The bank only gives you $50,000. Get where I'm going with this? The bank says, I'm sorry, this is all I can do. We're going bankrupt as it is. We can't provide you with anything more than 50 grand. You stomp and gnash your teeth and carry on, but there's nothing that can be done. The bank closes and you are left with half of your money. Now, when the bank closes, the bank ceases to have the ability to recollect that loan, and in that we have a bubble bursting, a bubble pops, so on. And just like when you have a bubble pop, say like on a table or whatever, you have that little splatter effect, and that's much like how a credit bubble bursts, in that if it was expanded through the use of loans anyway, the real money that is put into the system is inflated. That is to say, it goes out into loans, and then when that money is needed again, it's found that it's just it's like the baker's dozen thing. It's a baker's dozen is 13 because they cook air bubbles into their rolls. You think the roll is bigger than what it really is, but there's an air bubble inside. You think you have $100,000, but there's an air bubble inside your account. You don't have $100,000 anymore. That is now in the hands of someone who had a $50,000 thing to sell. And it's for that reason that it's very likely the person that ended up with your money is wealthy in some way. And say it's not just $100,000. Say it's $1 million, and you take out a loan for $500,000, and you pay someone for $500,000 worth of something. If you have anything that is worth taking out a loan for to afford, chances are you have some assets to begin with, and that's how the rich turn out on the good side of the bubble crunch, or the credit crunch, the bubble burst, whatever. And so it's not a mischievous thing by the rich people. It's not. It's a mischievous thing by the banks. Now, here's the scary thing. We all know this can happen, and so in our society we have established the Federal Reserve, which acts as the lender of last resort. The way it works is it looks at banks that are about to close, that are about to pop, and they give them money. They loan them money. They expand. Yeah, that's what they do. The central bank loans the other banks money. But where exactly does the central bank get its money? Does anyone invest in the central bank? How does that work? Well, it creates money, and it creates credit, that is to say, out of thin air. Which is to say, either it turns on the printing press and it prints out cash, or much more frequently what they do is they just transfer the credit in electronic form, and they just adjust the account of the bank that's failing and say, this is how much money you have. Voila. If you need more cash because people want to take cash out of the bank, fine. We'll print off some cash for you and we'll send it to you. Here's the problem with that. Realize that the dollar bills in your wallet, in your purse, are a representation, an equal representation of the total wealth of the United States of America. If you were to take every dollar bill and every electronic dollar and every coin and destroy it but all but one, say $1 bill, that dollar bill would be worth the sum total of America's wealth. Do you see how that works? So if you were to print off a second dollar bill, now suddenly each dollar bill represents half of the total wealth of the United States of America. You own part of the United States of America's wealth. That's how capitalism works. That's what gives you power. That's what gives you the democratic voice, but that's for a different video. Anyway, when the Federal Reserve prints off more money, what it really does is turn that $1 bill into $2 bills. So the dollar bill that was already in circulation, namely the one in your pocket right now, suddenly becomes less valuable because another dollar bill was created. This is a problem. This lender of last resort business is a lot of hot air. It creates the money out of nowhere, and the value of the money that it creates comes not from thin air, but from your pocket, you see. So how do you guard yourself against this? It begins with an interesting story, a true story. On the 2nd of this month, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, made a very large payment in the form of gold, ladies and gentlemen, to India to pay off something. I don't know. This has caused some stir because banks normally do not pay each other in gold. This is weird. Gold is used as a last resort. It is sort of what everything is supposed to be hinged upon, and this, because gold is what we call real money. It is something that cannot be inflated. You can't create gold out of thin air, and in that its value is always finite. It's always set. That one hunk of gold is always going to be worth people's perception of its value, not because of some fractional system of just printing off more money in the case of Federal Reserve notes. So when people are paying with gold, there's something serious happening, and people believe it is the passing of the torch, the turning over of the reins of economic power, if you will, from the west to the east. If it continues, you can expect the purchasing power of the dollar to continue to fall, because two things have to do with the purchasing power of the dollar. One, the actual purchasing power of the dollar, that whole printing off money and furthering this fractioning of your share of America's wealth, and the world's perception of our wealth. So they can overperceive and underperceive our wealth. What was pretty interesting is back in the day when gold was $35 an ounce. In other countries, it was not equal to $35 an ounce according to that exchange rate at the time. In Japan, it was $200 an ounce if you paid in Japanese yen. That represented an overestimation of the value of the dollar, and is why things are really quite crazy now, because it's not just a deflation of the real value of the dollar, but a deflation of people's expectation, people's perception. So how do you freeze your assets? How do you protect yourself? You protect yourself by investing in something that the bank cannot loan out, and that the Federal Reserve cannot duplicate and cannot therefore devalue, and that is gold bullion. You don't want to deal with old coins. You don't want to deal with anything like that other than gold ingots. You want to buy them from PAMP or Swiss Credit. When you buy these things, you want to buy them in the largest denomination available, because each of the ingots have a premium on them that is necessary for the manufacturing process to happen. But the good companies, such as Swiss Credit and PAMP, keep their overhead very low, so when you buy the gold ingot, it will be very closely related to the actual price of gold on the marketplace at that time. So if you can't afford the 1 ounces or the larger than the 1 ounces, Lord forbid you're using this as advice, and you can afford the 400 ounce gold ingots, the stuff that you see on the TV shows or whatever. There are smaller ones, they go down to 1 gram. But as big as you can afford, put these guys in a safety deposit box. Your bank might charge you a fee. That's okay, because that's how banks are supposed to be making their money. That's the kosher way banks might make money, so pay it proudly. And as soon as the dust settles, if you're into investing anyway, you want to sell your gold ingots and buy whatever currency's on top. And I'm keeping my eye on India. You might want to keep your eye on China as well. It's as simple as that, as far as I understand it anyway. But invest in gold and rest assured that it's not being loaned out, and it doesn't matter if the bank closes or not. Your money is always assured, and that the Federal Reserve cannot continue to devalue the money in your pocket by printing off money for free.
And the man at the back said everyone attack, and it turned into a ballroom blitz. And the girl in the corner said fire.